The morning I decided to leave started like any other nightmare. I was 22, lying on my bedroom floor because my sister had thrown my mattress out the window the night before, said I didn't deserve comfort. The bruise on my ribs from where Mom had kicked me 3 days earlier still throbbed with every breath. But something was different that morning. Maybe it was the way the sunlight hit the broken glass from the picture frame she'd thrown at me. Or maybe it was just that I'd finally reached my limit. All I knew was that if I stayed in that house one more day, I wouldn't survive to see 23. My name is Stella, and for as long as I can remember, my home was a war zone where I was always the enemy. My mother, Linda, had this way of smiling at neighbors and coworkers that made everyone think she was Mother of the Year. But behind closed doors, she was a monster who fed on my pain. And my older sister, Rachel, she was worse. Where Mom's cruelty came in waves, Rachel's was constant, calculated, and designed to break me piece by piece. That morning, I could hear them downstairs, laughing about something on television. Normal families share breakfast and morning coffee. Mine shared strategies for making my life unbearable. I pressed my ear to the floor, listening to their conversation drift up through the thin walls. "She's still up there?" Mom asked. "Like a cockroach," Rachel replied. "No matter what we do, she just won't take the hint." They both laughed. And I felt that familiar twist in my stomach, the one that told me today would be bad. I pulled myself up, wincing at the pain, and looked around my room, or what was left of it. Most of my belongings had been destroyed over the years. The laptop I'd saved for months to buy, thrown in the pool. My high school diploma, burned in the backyard while they made me watch. The few clothes I had left were stuffed in a broken dresser that tilted to one side. This wasn't a bedroom, it was a prison cell. The door handle rattled. My heart jumped into my throat. "Stella!" Rachel's sing-song voice called out. "Time to get up, princess. Mom needs you to clean the bathrooms, all 3 of them, with a toothbrush." She giggled at her own cleverness. And if they're not spotless by noon, well, you know what happens. I knew. God, did I know. The last time I'd failed one of their impossible tasks, they'd locked me out of the house for 2 days in January. I'd slept in the shed, nearly frozen to death, begging to be let back in while they watched television and pretended not to hear me. The neighbors? They were told I was visiting relatives. I opened the door slowly, keeping my eyes down. Never make eye contact, that was rule number 1 for survival. Rachel stood there in her designer pajamas, the ones she'd bought with the money she'd stolen from my college fund. She was 25, beautiful in that sharp, dangerous way that made people either fall in love with her or run. Most people fell in love. They never saw the darkness behind those green eyes until it was too late. "You smell," she said, wrinkling her nose. "When's the last time you showered?" It was a trap. I knew it was a trap. If I said yesterday, she'd call me a liar because she'd turned off the hot water to my bathroom 3 days ago. If I said 3 days ago, she'd call me disgusting and probably spray me with the garden hose like she did last summer. So I stayed silent. "I asked you a question." Her voice dropped an octave, and I felt my body tense. The sweet voice was an act. The low voice meant violence was coming. 3 days, I whispered. She smiled, satisfied. "Disgusting. No wonder no one loves you. No wonder Dad left." Dad. The ghost in our family's story. He'd left when I was 10, and somehow, in Mom and Rachel's minds, it was my fault. Never mind that he'd been having an affair. Never mind that he'd cleaned out the bank accounts. Somehow, 12-year-old Rachel had decided that if I hadn't been born, Dad would have stayed. And Mom? She was happy to have someone to blame besides herself. I made my way to the bathroom, grabbing the toothbrush they'd left for me, my own toothbrush, of course. They'd been making me use it to clean for so long that the bristles were worn down to nothing. As I knelt on the cold tile, I heard them in the hallway, whispering, planning something. They always planned in whispers, like conspirators in their own private war against me. 2 hours later, my knees were raw, my hands were bleeding from the harsh chemicals, and the bathrooms were cleaner than they'd ever been. I stood up, dizzy from the fumes and lack of food I hadn't eaten in 2 days because they'd padlocked the kitchen again. That's when Rachel appeared in the doorway, holding her phone. "Smile," she said, taking a picture of me. I looked horrible, hair matted, clothes stained, eyes hollow. "This is going on Instagram. My crazy sister, everyone. We try so hard to help her, but she insists on living like this." She typed as she talked, and I watched my humiliation get broadcast to her 3,000 followers. The comments started immediately. "Poor you, dealing with that. She needs help. You're such a good sister for putting up with her." If only they knew the truth. But who would believe me? Rachel was a marketing manager at a respected firm. Mom was a nurse. They were pillars of the community. I was nobody. A college dropout because they'd sabotaged my enrollment. Unemployed because they'd called every job I'd gotten and told them I was unstable. Friendless because they'd driven away anyone who tried to get close to me. That night, everything changed. I was in my room, trying to tape together a book they'd ripped apart, my grandmother's diary. The only thing I had left of someone who'd actually loved me when Rachel burst in. She was drunk. I could smell the wine on her breath, see the unsteady way she moved. Drunk Rachel was unpredictable Rachel. Sometimes she'd cry and apologize, say she didn't mean it. Those were the cruelest moments because for a second, just a second, I'd hoped things could change, but they never did. You know what your problem is? She slurred, sitting on my floor. You don't know when to quit. Any normal person would have gotten the message by now. She pulled out a bottle of pills from her pocket. Mom's sleeping pills. Here, do everyone a favor. Take them all. Just disappear. I stared at the bottle, then at her. She was serious. Dead serious. Rachel. I started, but she cut me off. No one would miss you. Mom would be relieved. I'd finally be able to live without the embarrassment of having you as a sister. And you? You'd finally be at peace. It's win-win, really. She left the pills on my floor and walked out, humming to herself. I sat there for hours, staring at that bottle. And for one terrifying moment, I considered it. That's when I knew I had to leave. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. Because if I stayed, one day I might actually listen to her. The planning started that night. I couldn't just run. I'd tried that before when I was 18. They'd called the police, told them I was mentally unstable and a danger to myself. I'd been brought back in handcuffs while the neighbors watched. Mom had played the concerned parent perfectly. We just want to help her, she'd sobbed to the officers. The moment they left, the beating I received ensured I wouldn't try again for years. But I was smarter now, quieter. I started documenting everything in secret. Every bruise, photographed with a disposable camera I'd found in the garage. Every cruel text message, screenshot and sent to a secret email account. Every incident, written down with dates and times in a notebook I kept hidden inside my pillowcase. If I was going to escape, I needed proof. I needed ammunition. The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. I still cowered when they yelled. Still did their impossible chores. Still took their abuse without fighting back. But inside, I was building my case. Inside, I was already gone. 3 weeks into my planning, Mom escalated. She'd had a bad day at work, a patient had complained about her bedside manner. Imagine that, and she came home looking for a punching bag. That was me. It was always me. You cost me a promotion, she screamed, though I hadn't even left the house that day. They probably heard about what a disappointment my daughter is. How you dropped out of college, how you can't hold a job, how you're nothing but a burden. She threw a plate at my head. I ducked, and it shattered against the wall. Clean that up, she said calmly, as if she hadn't just tried to split my skull open. As I picked up the pieces, one shard cut deep into my palm. Blood dripped onto the white tile. And for a moment, I watched it fall. How much blood had been spilled in this house? How many tears? How many years of my life had been stolen by these two women who were supposed to love me? You're getting blood on my floor, Mom said, disgusted. God, you can't do anything right. She grabbed my wrist, squeezing the wound until I cried out. Maybe if you bleed enough, you'll finally learn your lesson. Rachel watched from the doorway, eating an apple. You should have aimed better, Mom, she said between bites. Would have saved us all some trouble. They laughed together. And I realized something that chilled me to my core. They weren't just cruel, they were evil. There was no redemption here, no hope for change. They enjoyed this. That night, I added new evidence to my collection. Pictures of my bloody hand, the broken plate, the blood stains they'd made me clean up. I wrote down every word they'd said. My notebook was nearly full now, hidden inside the air vent in my room, the one place they'd never think to look. I also started researching. Late at night, when they thought I was asleep, I'd sneak onto Mom's computer. I looked up domestic violence shelters, legal aid services, how to disappear without a trace. I memorized bus routes, shelter addresses, phone numbers. I couldn't write anything down where they might find it, so I created songs to remember the information. To them, it probably sounded like I was finally losing my mind, humming constantly. They had no idea I was singing my escape route. The closer I got to freedom, the more scared I became. Not of leaving, of what they'd do when they realized I was gone. Rachel had once told me, during one of her more psychotic moments, that if I ever tried to leave again, she'd make sure I never made it out of the state. I have friends everywhere, she'd said. One phone call, and you're done. I believed her. Rachel didn't make empty threats. The day I chose to leave started with an omen. I found a dead bird on my pillow when I woke up. Not outside my window on my pillow, next to my head. Rachel was standing in my doorway, watching my reaction. Found it in the yard, she said casually. Thought you might like the company. Dead things belong together, don't you think? I didn't react. I couldn't afford to. Instead, I carefully picked up the bird with a tissue and walked past her to dispose of it. She looked disappointed. She'd wanted screaming, crying, something to entertain her. My lack of reaction made her angry, and an angry Rachel was dangerous. We're going out tonight, she announced. Mom and I, we're celebrating. Celebrating what? I didn't ask. I'd learned not to ask questions. You're not invited, obviously. The restaurant has standards. She paused at my door. Don't even think about leaving the house. I've got cameras now. Hidden ones. You take one step outside and I'll know. Cameras. My heart sank. How was I supposed to leave if she was watching? But then I realized she was lying. She had to be. Rachel was too narcissistic to spend money on surveillance when she could spend it on herself. This was just another mind game, another bar in my psychological prison. That afternoon, while they got ready for their night out, I made my final preparations. I packed light, one change of clothes, my evidence notebook, the $30 I'd managed to hide over the past month, and my grandmother's diary, now held together with tape. Everything fit in a small backpack I'd hidden behind the water heater in the basement. I waited at my window, watching them leave in Mom's car. Rachel looked back at the house, and for a moment, our eyes met. She smiled and waved. That fake sweet gesture that meant I'm watching you. I waved back, playing my part one last time. I waited another hour to be sure they were really gone. Then I retrieved my backpack and headed for the door. My hand was on the doorknob when I heard a car in the driveway. They were back. Already. It had been a test. They'd never intended to go out. Going somewhere? Mom's voice was deadly calm as she walked in. Rachel was behind her, recording everything on her phone. I told you she'd try to run, Rachel said gleefully. Didn't I tell you? Mom walked toward me slowly, deliberately. After everything we've done for you, fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your ungrateful head, and this is how you repay us? She was close now. So close I could smell her perfume, the same scent that had once meant comfort when I was very young, before she'd turned into this. I'm leaving, I said, finding my voice for the first time in years. You can't stop me. I'm an adult. This is abuse, and I'm leaving. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. My head snapped to the side, and I tasted blood. Abuse? Mom laughed. You want to see abuse? I'll show you abuse. What happened next was the worst beating I'd ever received. Mom grabbed a handful of my hair and dragged me to the living room. Rachel kept filming, providing commentary like it was some sick sport. Oh, that's gotta hurt, she said when Mom threw me into the coffee table. Points for style, though, Mom. I tried to protect my head, curling into a ball as the kicks came. My backpack was ripped away, its contents scattered. Mom found the notebook and started reading, her face growing redder with each page. You little spy, she hissed. You think this proves anything? You think anyone will believe you over us? She started ripping pages out, tearing my evidence to shreds. Months of documentation, destroyed in seconds. Rachel grabbed my grandmother's diary and held it over the fireplace. No, I begged. Please, not that. It's all I have left of her. Exactly, Rachel said, and dropped it into the flames. I watched it burn, watched the last piece of my grandmother turn to ash, and something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place. A clarity I'd never felt before. I stood up, despite the pain. Blood was running down my face from a cut above my eye, but I didn't care. I'm leaving, I said again. And if you try to stop me, I'll scream until the neighbors call the police. I'll tell them everything. I'll show them these bruises, this blood. Your choice. Mom laughed. You think they'll believe you? I'm a nurse. I'll tell them you did this to yourself. Self-harm. Mental illness. They'll lock you up, not us. But I was already walking toward the door. Rachel grabbed my arm, her nails digging in deep. You walk out that door, you're dead to us. Dead. You'll get nothing. No money, no help, no family. You'll be alone, and you'll end up on the streets. Is that what you want? I looked her straight in the eye. Being dead to you is the only way I'll ever be alive. I yanked my arm free and ran. They followed me to the door, screaming threats, saying they'd call the police, they'd find me, they'd ruin me. But I kept running. Down the street, around the corner, through the park. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs shook. I ran until I couldn't hear their voices anymore. I ended up at a gas station 5 miles away, bloody, crying, and clutching my backpack with my few remaining possessions. The attendant, a kind-looking older man, took one look at me and asked, "Do you need me to call someone?" The police? A shelter, I gasped. Please. Just. A domestic violence shelter. He didn't ask questions. He made the call, let me sit in the back room, and gave me a bottle of water and some paper towels for the blood. Whoever did this to you, he said quietly, you're brave for leaving. Don't go back. No matter what, don't go back. The shelter was a nondescript building in a part of town I'd never been to. The woman who answered the door took one look at me and immediately brought me inside. No judgment, no questions about why I'd waited so long to leave. Just immediate, overwhelming kindness that made me cry harder than any beating ever had. I'm Patricia, she said, leading me to a small office. You're safe here. Whatever happened, whoever hurt you, they can't get to you here. She handed me tissues and waited patiently while I tried to compose myself. When you're ready, we'll need to document your injuries. Take pictures, write a report. But only when you're ready. Ready. I'd never be ready to relive what had just happened, but I knew it was necessary. Over the next hour, I told Patricia everything. Years of abuse condensed into words that seemed too small to contain that much pain. She listened, took notes, and never once looked at me with pity, only understanding. Do you have any documentation? She asked gently. Any evidence? I shook my head, explained about the notebook, how they'd destroyed it. She nodded. That's common. Abusers often destroy evidence. But your evidence, your injuries, your testimony, that matters. She took photos of every bruise, every cut. The flash of the camera made me flinch each time, remembering Rachel's phone, how she documented my humiliation for entertainment. But this was different. This was proof. This was my truth being validated for the first time. Patricia led me to a room, small, simple, with 2 beds. Your roommate is at work right now, but you'll meet her later. Her name is Anna. She's been here 3 months. She'll help you understand how things work here. She pointed to a bag on the bed. Some basic supplies, toiletries, a few changes of clothes. They might not fit perfectly, but they're clean and they're yours. Mine. Such a simple word, but I hadn't had anything that was truly mine in so long. I sat on the bed, my bed, and the reality hit me. I'd done it. I'd escaped. But instead of relief, I felt terror. What if they found me? What if Mom made good on her threat to have me committed? What if Rachel was right and I couldn't survive on my own? That night, I met Anna. She was maybe 30, with kind eyes and a cautious smile. She didn't ask about my bruises, didn't push for my story. Instead, she showed me where everything was: the bathroom, the kitchen, the common area where women gathered to watch television or just exist in safety. First night's the hardest, she said. You'll jump at every sound, think every car outside is them. But it gets easier, I promise. She was right about the sounds. Every footstep in the hallway made my heart race. Every door closing sounded like Mom coming to drag me back. I didn't sleep that first night. Instead, I sat by the window, watching the parking lot, waiting for them to appear. They never did. The next few weeks were a blur of firsts. First therapy session, where I said the words, "My mother and sister abused me," out loud to a professional. First time eating a meal without fear that it would be taken away. First time sleeping through the night without nightmares that took 3 weeks. But it happened. The shelter had rules, structure, things I wasn't used to. Chores were assigned, but they were fair. Meetings were mandatory, but they were supportive. Everyone had a story, and slowly, I began to share mine. The other women didn't judge. They understood in ways no one else ever could. We were all refugees from our own wars. I started working with a case manager named Derek who helped me apply for benefits, look for jobs, and most importantly, file a restraining order. "They've been calling the shelter," he told me one day. "Your mother and sister, demanding to know if you're here. We don't confirm or deny anyone's presence, but I want you to know they're looking for you." The fear came back full force. They were looking for me. Of course they were. Not because they loved me or wanted me back, but because I'd escaped their control. I was the toy that had walked away and they couldn't stand it. "They also filed a missing persons report," Derek continued. "Claimed you're mentally ill and a danger to yourself. But given your documentation and injuries when you arrived, the police aren't taking it seriously. You're an adult who left an abusive situation. That's not a crime." Not a crime. It felt like a crime. 22 years of conditioning told me I was betraying my family, that I was ungrateful, that I deserved whatever happened to me for leaving. The therapy helped, but those voices, Mom's voice, Rachel's voice, they lived in my head rent-free. One day, about a month into my stay, I was in the common room when the news came on. A local interest story about a charity event. And there they were, Mom and Rachel, dressed to the nines, smiling for the cameras. "We're just happy to give back to the community," Mom was saying. The reporter gushed about what wonderful people they were. I wanted to throw up. "That them?" Anna asked, sitting beside me. I nodded, unable to speak. She studied the screen for a moment. "They look exactly like what I pictured. Perfect on the outside, rotten on the inside." My ex-husband was the same way. Pillar of the community, monster at home. It helped, knowing I wasn't alone. That other people had survived this exact type of person and come out the other side. Anna had her own apartment now, was just staying at the shelter while she saved up enough to move to a new city. "Fresh start," she said, "somewhere he'll never think to look for me." 3 months into shelter life, things started to change. I got a job, nothing fancy, just stocking shelves at a grocery store, but it was mine. Money I earned that no one could take away. I opened my first bank account with only my name on it. The teller had no idea why I cried when she handed me the debit card. I was also accepted into a transitional housing program. My own studio apartment, subsidized for up to 2 years while I got back on my feet. The day I got the keys, Patricia hugged me. "You've come so far," she said. "Be proud of yourself." But moving out of the shelter meant being more exposed. The apartment was across town, but still in the same city as them. I changed my appearance, cut and dyed my hair, dressed differently. I became someone new, someone they wouldn't recognize if they passed me on the street. The restraining order was approved. Mom and Rachel were legally required to stay away from me. It was just paper, I knew that, but it was something. Official acknowledgement that what they'd done was wrong, that I had the right to be safe from them. 6 months after leaving, I enrolled in community college. Just 2 classes to start, but it was progress. I was building a life, piece by piece. I made friends cautiously, slowly, but I made them. People who knew nothing about my past, who liked me for who I was becoming, not who I'd been forced to be. Then, 1 year after my escape, I saw her. Rachel. At the mall where I sometimes went to window shop. She didn't see me. I ducked into a store the moment I spotted her, but she was there, laughing with friends, shopping like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she hadn't tried to destroy another human being. I hid in that store for an hour, shaking, waiting for her to leave. The urge to confront her was strong, but I knew it would only hurt me. She'd twist it somehow, make herself the victim. So I stayed hidden, stayed safe, stayed away. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but also the most important. Through all of this, therapy continued. Twice a week, working through trauma that went deeper than I'd realized. Learning that the voice in my head telling me I was worthless wasn't my voice, it was theirs. Learning to replace it with something kinder, something true. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, never pushed too hard but always pushed enough. You survived. She'd remind me when I felt weak. That takes incredible strength. Not everyone could have done what you did. 3 years have passed since that night I ran from my mother's house, bloody and terrified. 3 years of rebuilding, recovering, reclaiming my life. I'm 25 now, the same age Rachel was when she handed me those pills and told me to disappear. But unlike her, I'm not cruel. I'm not broken. I'm healing. I graduated from community college last month with an associate's degree in social work. I want to help other people escape what I escaped, survive what I survived. The ceremony was small, and I didn't have family there to cheer for me, but my friends were there, my chosen family. The people who love me, not despite my past, but because of who I am. I'm engaged now. His name is Michael, and he's the gentlest soul I've ever met. He knows my story, has held me through panic attacks when certain sounds or smells trigger memories. He's never once suggested I should reconcile with my family, never once implied I'm overreacting. He just loves me, simply and completely. We're planning a small wedding, nothing fancy, just us and our closest friends. I thought about the father-daughter dance tradition, and instead of sadness, I felt peace. My friend Marcus, who's been like a brother to me, will dance with me instead. Family isn't blood. Family is choice. I haven't seen Mom or Rachel since that day at the mall. I heard through the legal system that they'd tried to contest the restraining order, claiming I was lying, that I was mentally unstable. The judge didn't buy it. The photos of my injuries, the testimony from the shelter workers, the pattern of harassment, it all painted a clear picture. Sometimes I wonder if they think about me, if they regret what they did. But then I remember Rachel's eyes that night, the joy she took in my pain, and I know the answer. People like them don't change. They just find new victims. But I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. I have a life they said I'd never have. Love they said I didn't deserve. Success they said I was too worthless to achieve. Every day I wake up in my own apartment, next to someone who loves me. Preparing for a career where I'll help others is a victory. Every day I exist is proof they were wrong. The scars are still there, physical ones that have faded to white lines, and emotional ones that may never fully heal. But scars are proof of survival. They're proof that I was stronger than what tried to break me. To anyone reading this who's still trapped in their own nightmare, it's not your fault, you don't deserve it, and you can leave. It will be the hardest thing you ever do, but also the most important. There are people waiting to help you, shelters ready to protect you, a life waiting for you to claim it. My sister told me to disappear. In a way, I did. The girl who cowered and cried, who believed she was worthless, who thought abuse was love, she's gone. In her place stands someone stronger, someone who knows her worth, someone who chose to live despite everything. They wanted me to end my story. Instead, I began it.